muted myself when I was talking. That was so dumb.
No, it's better that way, actually.
You muted before you said it again.
All right, Jensen, you can talk now a little bit.
Or message code. Who? Saturday the 28th. No? Yes? Yeah, let's just not do that. I'm going to restart that whole bit. Right. Whoopsie.
Majesty's going to speak again. Everybody watch out.
Thanks, TJ. That was it. Shush.
You almost got me with that one.
If you would like to rep the...
I was trying really hard not to laugh at patreon.com/Plastic Posse.
It's not like an SNL skit that's just broken.
Premium access.
You're never going to get this.
It was all the... It was the acknowledgement. That's a typo. Oh, I'm dying.
Hold on. Why are you moving your cursor?
No, I wasn't trying to be funny.
You know, he's just adding more typos.
Lastly, a request from all our listeners. No, it's not. Whoopsie.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 96 of the Plastic Posse podcast. It's a little bit different this episode. We're missing most of our hosts. One, JB, is gallivanting across Europe currently, and the other ones are at the Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo, which is happening right now as we're recording this. So hats off to them. Hope that having a good time. But with me, I have Zach Grizzle and Jonathan Anderson. Before we kind of see how everyone's doing, I want to give a special shout out to all of our patrons who help bring you the Plastic Posse, and also give a special thanks to our partners, Tankcraft, Tamiya USA, and AK Interactive. So I'm going to go around the room and see what everyone is working on. Jensen, I'm going to start with you.
Magic. Right. Well, I've been working on two builds kind of at once at the moment. I started my build for Scale Model Challenge, which is rapidly approaching. It's like 3 months away now. So I started the Mini R M3 Stewart initial full interior. Absolutely loving that kit. Like, the interior fits perfectly. Everything's detailed nice. Ejector pins are very well placed and actually hidden in really good areas that usually get covered up. There's a little bit of typical Mini R stuff in there. So like mold lines are a little thick and sprue gates on really small parts, but you know, that's just what it is. That kit is nice. Only issue I've had, genuine issue, and I've not enjoyed, is the bogies and suspension. For some reason, and I don't know what, I've looked at the instructions, I've looked at how I've built them up, I've made sure I've used the right parts. For some reason, all my bogies lean. They for some reason lean in. So all my wheels look a little bit funky, but because the wheels attach not with like pegs through the wheels, they just attach with like ball joints, they can wobble and be positioned properly. So that's kind of nice. But then that was put aside because that Meng Jumbo has been on my bench for, well, we worked it out at 549 days, which is a little bit embarrassing. So it's been there and it's been annoying me. I was like, right, I have to get this finished. And 40 minutes before we started recording, it got finished. So I need to take some photos of that. The base is done, vignette, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's finished. And without sounding at all full of myself, which is kind of hard to do with what I'm about to say, when I look at it, I love it because it looks like the models that I enjoy looking at, which actually doesn't sound too bad. But yeah, when I look at it, I'm like, you know what? That's actually quite nice. So yeah, I'm loving that. So Meng Jumbo is actually finished. That's nice. So now I can crack back on with the M3 Stewart.
I just want to be clear that anytime anyone, and I'm guilty of this too, says not to sound too full of myself, they're about to say something that makes them sound extremely full of themselves.
Yes.
So, but no, that's cool. I'm super excited about it. Just the little picture you sent in our group chat was pretty awesome. I'm waiting for the final photos, and I'm waiting to see it in person because I know it's going to be really, really cool. Zach, what about you, man? What are you working on?
Well, let's see. I've got a Tamiya R35, little tiny guy, which I'm building as like you see a whole lot of photos of them in, 1940, whatever, being knocked out because we all know what happened in 1940 to the French. So I was inspired by a couple of those photos. So it's going to be on a little base, sort of run off the road. Initially, I was going to have it like pushed off the road, but then I didn't want to really deal with you got to like push the dirt on the diorama, and I wasn't feeling doing all that. So it's just going to be ran off the road, burnt out a little bit. I 3D printed a turret interior for it and like a trench skid, which I think makes it look really cool. It kind of totally changes the shape of the model, and I really like how it looks. And I'm also painting for the third time, one of the two, a marine figure that I got in not Omaha, San Marcos last year to go on a base that we actually built. I think everybody here was at Rick's base seminar, and I built it during that. It was really fun to do. I found out of the what does he call it, the blue bowl of good stuff or whatever, this little twig, and it inspired me to make like a jungle scene. And then there just happened to be this Andrea marine figure there, and I went, well, looky there, that goes perfectly. So I painted it fully once, did something stupid and had to restart, and then I've sort of picked at it a little bit over the last year or so, but I'm getting back into doing it more. And this time I'm trying to use my brush more than I do my airbrush, which has gone, I think, better than I expected it to. I'm not an incredible figure painter, but I think I'm definitely learning. So that's good. And I'm actually going to be starting another plane soon because I've lost my mind. The Edward Royal Class P51B set got me. So actually my dad turned 50 yesterday. So I bought that, and this is definitely not in any way a way for me to justify buying this model for myself whatsoever. This was entirely selfless on my part. So I bought it, and I'm giving him one of them, and we're going to sort of build them together, that type of thing. But yeah, that's what I got so far.
So what scale is that marine figure that you have? 75 millimeter?
I think I'm not sure. I think it's 1/35th, but he's small. I think it's not scaled quite properly. Of course, then again, when you think about figures scaled properly, the average is 6 foot, but there's outside the average. So he's just a small guy.
I think I have that same figure, but in like big scale. I think in like 90 millimeter scale.
I think they do it in 90 or 16th or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, I'm excited to see you build another airplane, even though airplanes are for nerds.
Well, yeah.
That's okay.
You would know.
And Doc, what are you working on?
So I got a couple things. I got one almost going off the bench, right? So the Bradley kind of mini group build, the Magic Factory new kit. We need to add sound effects when I say the letter B real quick, if you do that in post-production. So it's a big red B, however you make red come across in sound. But that's at that like 95% done stage. Like I need to add the antennas. There's a couple tiny details to paint. I'm going to go refine the weathering. I like to take it off the bench for like a week or two and kind of put it on the shelf. And then actually I don't have the antennas. They're in the mail anyway. I've got a couple aftermarket ones, and I'll bring it back and kind of refine a little bit. But it's really close. And that was a great build, as you guys know, having played with the kit. And then I cracked open the Rye Field, the new Puma SDKFZ 234/2. Yes, I got it right, which is fun. It looks good. I've just started the first couple steps of like the suspension, and I got some aftermarket wheels and tires because, of course, I went down the rabbit hole and found pictures, and I thought, ooh, this is the one I want to do. And it has one tire kind of blown off in Normandy, and they're fixing it. And of course, it has multiple tread patterns on the wheels in real life. So then I had to go buy multiple aftermarket wheels so my little car can have multiple tread patterns, because that's what we care about, right? So I just got yesterday the Heavy Hobby aftermarket wheels for it. I'd already gotten the Rye Field, like 3D printed ones that are optional with the kit. Though now I'm jealous because I got pictures of the ET model aftermarket wheels, and I think they might be the best. So who knows? I have to get those too. But it looks promising. And then I have a couple of shelf queens that we don't need to talk about because I'm not touching them right now.
Yeah, you were sending pictures of all your different wheels, which it's funny. I mean, so that's the stuff that only like we would care about. No one else would care. Anyone else looking at it is like, why is there multiple kinds of wheels on this? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, I can see myself getting knocked off and some competition in the future. Mismatched wheels, -1 point. It's in my reference photo. I mean, honestly, the kit wheels, they have vinyl tires, but they are, I will say, the nicest vinyl tires I've ever seen. And the actual hub is super crispy detailed. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to use the kit supplied stuff on this guy if you can paint the vinyl without it peeling off. They're actually really nice. But yeah, I think ET Models already has 8 or 10 different sets of aftermarket wheels with different sizes and tread patterns. And then trying to look at those and then look at a grainy old photo from Normandy in 44. And I think it's the 1 diamond tread, but not the fine one that, I'm sure there's some world expert on Puma wheels that will turn up after this podcast and tell me I bought the wrong ones.
If you don't get a comment on a feedback sheet at AMPS Nats next year about not having matching tires, I will be very disappointed in the judges.
This is the inconsistent weathering, will be inconsistent tire tread. And also, noted Station 2 tire is not inflated as much as Station 3 tire. You should check your pressures.
No, that's cool. Even I've kind of been tempted by that kit. The Puma is pretty cool, and it's right field, and I love right field. So, but no, that's cool. I'm looking forward to you really starting to get that one together.
Yeah, it looks nice. And then Mini Art, of course, also has dropped a new one, and they've announced the /4, the one with the big long anti-tank gun with kind of an open top turret. So now I'm all tempted to make that next. I like wheelie things that get dirty. I don't like actual cars, but you give me a truck or a wheeled gun truck or something. Those are fun. And
for me, I've been spending, I think, most of my time on my Lima M4A1 for SMC. It's been pretty fun. I was doing some body work on it today. I feel like a airplane modeler or a car guy, I guess. Filling holes, sanding stuff off, kind of starting building the driver's hoods around, because the Asuka kit is not accurate to at least that kind of M4A1. So you kind of have to build out of plastic around the little periscope hatch in the driver's hood. So I've started. I'm probably going to mix up some putty. I should have done it before we record this so I could let it sit, because if anyone's used Abe's epoxy sculpt, you really need to let it sit for maybe almost 2 hours before you can really, because other than that, it just kind of it's not easy to work with. So I've got that going on. I was really proud of myself. I designed little spring access plugs. So if anyone's ever seen a Sherman bogie, on the top where the track skid sits, on a real one, there's 2 1.25 inch diameter tapped holes, and a little plug that's got a big hex key goes in there, and you can pull that plug out and you can access the volute spring that's on the inside of the bogie. No kit has that, but if you look at a lot of especially Relics and Gate Guardians, they're very prominent because they can technically thread all the way down, but most of the time they're sticking out. So I'm that can't be that hard. It's a circle with a hex in it. So I made one in Fusion, and I had Jackson double check the measurements, and then David Hobbs sent me some info too to confirm the measurements, and I designed and printed it, and they look really good, actually. I was pretty proud of myself. It's a neat little detail that you probably won't see on most other models. And I was thinking about just putting the file out, on the Sherman modeling Facebook group, if anyone wants it. It's pretty neat. You just drill a little hole and drop the little thing in, and boom, there you go. So that's kind of what I've really been working on. I got to figure out how far I want to take the bogies, because the Asuka kit only has one type of bogie. And if you look in a reference book, there's a lot of variance between the different bogies. And my prototype has a specific type that does not come in the Asuka kit. I got to figure out how much I actually care about that. I might not care too much, but we'll see, because I might have to do some work and shave off some mold lines, add some new mold lines, add new casting marks, all that kind of stuff. But that's what I've been working on. It's been really fun. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to actually getting it progressed. All right, we're going to move right into models that we liked in the Plastic Posse. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Jensen.
Cheers. So for me, it was Kenneth Childress A34 Comet. Really like the Comet. And it's one of those kits that I have bought literally every bit of aftermarket for and still haven't built. For some reason, neglect British Armour. But yeah, he's doing a really nice job on it. It looks really crisply built at the minute. He's put a Def Models mantlet cover on it. I think he's got an RB machine gun for it, metal barrel for it, resin muzzle. It looks really nice. I love watching these models come together with all the aftermarket bits, all multimedia. And yeah, it looks to be going together like really clean, like a really nice, precise, clean build. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that comes together.
I know I mentioned after I built that kit, that's one of the easiest building kits I've ever worked on. I mean, it's Tamiya through and through, and it just builds well. And yeah, Kenneth's a good builder, so I know it's going to be really cool. I picked Barton Vischer. I think that's how you say his last name. He did Dick Winters from Band of Brothers, Easy Company fame. And I think the Nuts Planet makes the bust. It's 1/10 scale. It's based on Damian Lewis. I think that's who played Dick Winters in Band of Brothers. So it's not the real Dick Winters, but it's Damian Lewis's version of him. It's a really sweet figure. I've almost bought it a couple times because it's Dick Winters' Band of Brothers. It's kind of hard not to want to do it. But yeah, he just posted, I want to say yesterday or the day before. It's really cool. Zach, what about you?
So I may have the strangest choice of any of this segment ever. I got some wheels, specifically Daniel Brooker's Panzer IV wheels, one in 1/16th and then one in 1/35th. A lot of people, you always hear the idea that, oh, that part is like a model in itself. This truly could be a model of itself. He could put that 1/16th Panzer IV wheel on a display, and I would not bat an eye at that. They are just mind blowing. He is. I forget exactly what you said a minute ago, TJ. How did you phrase it?
He's the best modeler that not enough people know about.
Yes, exactly. He somehow keeps such a low profile for being, in my opinion, like one of the top 10 modelers in the world. I mean, he is incredible. His work with scratch building, his work with weathering, at every single stage, he is just top of the game. I mean, he really is. And these wheels, I think they show that very well. I've never seen dust replicated in such a visceral way. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It perfectly matches his.
It does.
Reference photo. I mean, he had a photo of the exact one that he's building, and it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you could Photoshop them side by side. I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference. It's that spot on in both scales.
And last but not least, Janners, what caught your attention?
Well, first I'm going to be cheeky and use my time machine to call out Jensen's jumbo that is not currently posted, but by the time this airs, will be in the Plastic Posse. But I've cheated and gotten preview photos, and it's great. And it's also a great subject. Like, I love a Sherman jumbo. That's the first thing I built when I got back into modeling as an adult, was the Asuka kit, which is great. I've built that kit, the main kit. It's fun. It's a good kit. And Jensen's is wonderful and looks totally different than the one I made, which is maybe why I like it so much. But that's my cheeky shout out. But then to give a real one, since, calling a host out just explains why they let me co-host today. I was going to call out Maddie Models IDF M113, which is posted about a week ago in the Posse. Again, it's the AV Club kit. I've made not this version, but I've made a version of their 113. It's a tough kit, but a fun kit. Like, you got to put some work into it, but the results are good. And it's one of those things where personally, I hate doing like full interior, full builds of vehicles because you can't see much and it's so much work and you feel like an airplane modeler, which is no fun with the sub-assemblies. But the kind of exception to the rule, 113 with that big old top hatch and the big gate at the back, you can see a ton of the work you put into it, so it's worthwhile. And his interior is a lot of fun with that kind of seam foam green. And then he did a lot of his own kind of like handmade, scratch-built stowage on the sides, which I think really is a lot of fun. And the chipping and all, it's a fun style, so go check that one out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's 6 Day War era. I think that's when that one is. I don't know. I mean, I know it's IDF, obviously, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got a little figure staying on top of it, too.
Okay, so now we're going to head into the upcoming model events and shows for the coming months and season ahead. So starting, we have on September 21st is the IPMS Reno High Rollers annual show. For more details, check out IPMS Reno High Rollers at Facebook or message Cody Kaczynski. On September 27th till the 28th, the Central Arkansas Scale Modelers will be hosting RockCon, formerly Sprue-Do. This show will serve as the 24 Region 6 IPMS regional contest. Friday the 27th, there will be classes from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. by Jim Rice, Wes Zalazar, and others. Saturday the 28th, the contest doors will open at 8 a.m. and wrap up around 4 p.m. We utilize gold, silver, bronze awards, and there will be plenty of great vendors on site. Look for more information on our Facebook page at Central Arkansas Scale Modelers or our website, casmodels.org. The 15th annual Scale Model Challenge will be held in Eindhoven in the Netherlands on October 19th and 20th, 2024. More information over the website at www.scalemodelchallenge.com. The annual MMSI show will be held on October 18th and 19th, 2024 at the Schaumburg Marriott in Schaumburg, Illinois. For more information, you can check out their website at www.militaryminituresocietyofillinois.com/about the show. For our friends down under, Scale ACT 24, Australia's friendliest scale model show, will be held November 9th and 10th at the Thoroughbred Park in Lynham, ACT. Models can enter models in the competition or select display only.
All right, let's jump into a little bit of feedback that we got from episode 95. And I think most of this comes from the Plastic Posse Facebook group. And I'll start with my buddy Pat Brown, who answered Grant Mayberry's question that his favorite modeling event is our monthly local AMPS meetings, which I agree. That's one of my favorite events too, because I'm there every month. And Pat's usually there, except for last month, he was not there. I've talked about our AMPS meetings before. I know Zach's been to one. They're super fun. They're super laid back. And then we go drink beer afterwards and then go eat dinner. And it's pretty awesome. And then we also had some feedback from my buddy Eric Ravina. And he said his favorite modeling event is the AMPS Nats, which is probably one of the best ones too. And he also had a comment about group builds. And he said he liked time-constrained group builds like the 48 and 48 or the turkey shoot, and they're loads of fun. But he also has not finished a model that he started for a group build yet.
We also have some feedback from Jeremy Moore on the subject of group builds. If any of you see my name posted in a group build, assume I've been hacked and send a PM. And Robert Blocker says, a great episode again. The discussion on group builds is an interesting one. I've joined a few through all my years in this hobby, even organized a few. And one thing I picked up from all that is that I'm not a group build kind of guy. I hate doing things on deadlines in my spare time.
Joe McClaskin came with similar feedback about group builds. He said he really felt they're a good thing, especially for new builders or new members to a group. He remembered his first group build was part of a Fine Scale Modelers Pearl Harbor group build that he did many years ago. Kind of ironically, he admits he never finished that build, but he's still super close friends with a number of people he met during it.
From Adam Jackson, so many honk beep noises in the last episode. See what happens when I'm not there. I wonder which podcast I'm listening to. On group builds, I love them if they happen to align exactly with what I want to build at that very time, as I only do one build at a time.
It's funny that he mentioned that. When I was listening to the last episode, I was like, man, there's a lot of bleeps in this episode. I don't remember swearing that much, but
I've been trying to hold back, but should I just let it go when tests got out?
I guess we kind of did. Definitely quite a few came from me. I'm like, maybe I should try to get a little bit better about that. And then to follow it up, our buddy Jeremy Elliott said, great episode. He loved the discussion about shows being social events. His favorite thing about shows is just going to the community. And then with group builds, he said that he loved them, but he rarely finishes them, which I think has been, that's like the most, that's what everyone said. Most people don't finish group builds. So yeah, he is not alone there. So thank you everyone for your feedback. As always, you can email us, message us, or just post a post in the Plastic Posse Facebook group after each episode. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our main discussion topic and potentially only discussion topic for this episode, but I think it's going to be a really good one. I think all of us here have a lot to say. Try to get some of our other friends to join, but sadly couldn't. Ian was working. Aaron is a little bit under the weather, and Jackson told us to F off and he went out to lunch. It was a little disappointing because I wanted all three of them specifically too, because I feel like they would understand where this is coming from. Not that you guys don't. I think we all kind of feel where this is coming from, and I think we all have our ideas on this too. But my main thing is this came from a discussion we were having the other day that I offered someone some tips, some just general tips, because they wanted to do something, that I had just done. And I've long maintained that, to quote Aaron, what we do really isn't that hard. And most of modeling is just willing to put in and deal with the tedium, because that's what a lot of it is. And I kind of came up with these, like what I called the 4 points to improve. That's a little bit, I think, of a misnomer. I don't know if it's necessarily improve, but like get the 4 points to just how to, I don't know really how to say it. I guess improve, but it was research, patience, aftermarket, question mark, and then feedback. We can kind of kick it around. If you had to pick 4 things, what would your 4 things be?
Yeah, no, I wrote my 4 down at the top of the show before I looked at yours. And I think if we draw like Venn diagram, we're going to have tons of overlap. But I'll give you my 4. I did one worders for the 4 so practice, references, competition, and passion. And I think, if you go into that more, there's even more overlap with what you're going to say.
What about you, Zach or Jensen?
Legit, like Doc just said the exact same ones. I think passion's a really important one.
That is a good one.
A little bit later on in the discussion, I'll go into why like that was one of the top ones for me. But yeah, research, passion, feedback, and I don't like the word critique, but seeking feedback and critique from others. And I when I say others, I mean specific type of people. I don't see feedback from everyone, but again, I'll go into that a bit later. And patience and willing. But yeah, we'll again go into them a bit more in depth in a little bit.
So I don't have 4 because the other 3 were basically, we've all said them at this point. But one more I would like to add is very similar to patience, but I do think there is a distinction to be made, and that is persistence. Maybe, or discipline might be another word, which if you know me is somewhat funny coming from myself. It's one of those things where like, I know it should be there, but I don't always have it. But I think being able to discipline yourself, which obviously sounds like a very strong word and something that is a hobby, but to be able to have the discipline to stick with something, to push, even if it gets tough for a little bit, because we all know there's those points in a build where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore, but you might still be passionate about it. You might just, for whatever reason, you really want to build this, but you've gotten to that little sticking point, and having the persistence and the discipline to just push that little bit more can really help you not only improve, but just build more models, build better models.
Yeah, that's a good one too. And I kind of want to take a little like a step back and kind of explain that this is kind of coming from and directed towards not necessarily a new modeler, but a modeler that is established and they want to jump to the next level. Not that necessarily what I do is the next level or what anyone here does is the next level. It's not like that. But I think the 4 of us we've reached a certain point in our modeling journey where I feel like it's okay for us to kind of look back at this kind of stuff. And I also want to make it very clear that not everyone wants to do this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know you hear a lot of people, why should I care? It's a hobby. That's fair. No one says you have to. You model the way you want to model, and I 100% respect how anyone wants to do this hobby, because it does mean a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. For me personally, part of it is driving to get better. That's what I've enjoyed. I wasn't necessarily always like that, but as I started to take it quote unquote seriously, I just was like, I know where I want to be and I really want to get there. And not everyone wants to do that. And that's totally fine. That's awesome. Like, seriously, that's not like being sarcastic or anything. That is totally cool. And I'm here for it. So just to kind of get that, I guess, ground level, I probably should have started with that. This isn't to tell anyone that what they do is not good enough, anything like that. So I'll kind of also jump back to my 4 points. So number 1 was research. And I think you guys had also mentioned it too. I know Janders did. That's one that's a newer one for me, because I'm sure there's recordings of this podcast where I have said I don't care about accuracy. Matter of fact, I know there is. And sometimes that's true, because accuracy is a sliding scale. Some stuff I care is super accurate. Other stuff I care very little how accurate it is. And a lot of it's subject dependent. Obviously, I care if a Sherman is more accurate because that's my preferred subject than if I was building a Panzer IV, because I don't know that much about Panzers. I don't care. I have nothing against building them. And if I built one, like when I built my Tiger, okay, like I'm sure the Tiger lovers could tell me everything wrong with it. And that's cool. Like I respect that. I just don't care. But I think research and reference is so important, because to me, it's like if you do that, then you can kind of get like a good baseline with how to make your model look real, if you want to call it real, because obviously I'm not too concerned with hyper realism, but I try to make it real enough. And as far as reference goes and research, books are awesome. There's a ton, like we live in the future, so there's websites for everything. Some nerd is obsessed with something no matter what, and you have access to it on the internet. So take advantage of it. And one that I think is a little controversial is I like using other people's builds as references in research. A lot of people say not to do that. I don't really care, because there's some damn good builders out there that make some pretty cool stuff that's super accurate.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I used the word reference. I mean, you can say you're researching other builds, because I was trying to, use an umbrella term for, number one, the historic accuracy, right? Which I think is a goal that's a very valid goal in its own right. If you want to micro detail that specific factory month XYZ, that's cool. But also references to weathering, right? Both of that vehicle or something similar, right? You can't find a picture of that Panzer in that mud, but you have other vehicles to look at. But also references to technique, right? And really chasing. And that's what's so amazing online right now. You can find amazing step-by-steps and other references of how to achieve looks, but you need to put that into practice, right? And I think one of the things I've learned from, because I always was a history nerd. So like, oh yeah, research the tank you're building. Sure, right? Like 5 years ago, I'd read a bunch about a Panzer IV and I knew all sorts of things. It had nothing to do with making a model of it. And I think one of the specific things I would tell people if you want to kick your model up a notch is, look at these walk-arounds and really zoomed in photos with the intention to find missing details and add them, right? What makes a build look cool? One of the things is lots of little tiny details that other builds don't have. And it takes practice and it takes an eye to look for these things, right? But so I'll pull up a walk-around now when I'm doing any build and go through all those funny photos that some friend of mine on the internet crawled under a ZSU 23 10 years ago and took funny pictures of the inside of the road wheels. But now I know to add like an oil plug that drains, things like that. And just look through each photo and look at your model literally and say, can I add like weld beads? Can I add a couple bolts? Is there something little that's easy to do? I don't like scratch building, but I do like adding details that will kick the finished product up a notch. That's the kind of research you need, not necessarily the performance of the 76 millimeter gun at 2,000 yards, which is neat, but has nothing to do with what you're making.
Yeah, I think it's like it's little, to me, little tiny details like that really, it really increase the, and I'm going to probably butcher this word, verisimilitude. I'm not even going to try. Verisimilitude. Something like that. I know what it means, and curse me for being an idiot and not pronounce it, but it's the appearance of being real. And that, like, to me, like, so when it comes to like Sherman's, it's like the foundry marks or machining on certain parts. You don't have to do those things and still make a beautiful model. But I know like Spud got super into like recreating the machine surfaces on the Easy 8 that he did and the M10 that he's working on now. And I know Jackson started to do it, and I've started to do it on my 35th scale stuff. And it makes a huge difference because it just looks real, because anyone that's been around these machines or has seen pictures, which I've been fortunate to do both, like they're giant metal pieces. And if you know anything about how stuff is made, they didn't just cast the part and it was done. Like they're manufactured. So a dude with a grinder was grinding on that thing, and that you can see that stuff on the real thing, but kits don't really have that. So if you give it that, if you give your kit that, and you're informed by documentation, that you either took yourself or is available in reference material or on the internet, those little things, I think really just, I don't know, they make your build sing, and like you were saying, Jen, there's bolts missing somewhere, a weld bead missing somewhere. Kits don't have a lot of that stuff through either molding considerations or just they missed it in there when they tooled it. A lot of stuff does have weld beads now, but a lot of it gets missed too. But if you look around the real one, and you can use kind of not your imagination, but your common sense, like stuff just doesn't stick to things, right? Like something stuck to the side of a turret has to be there some way. It's not magic, so it's probably welded on.
Yeah, I know this is a bit off topic kind of. There's a chef, Marco Pierre White, and he always says perfection is lots of little things done well. And that definitely applies in modeling. It's like you say, those little things, like when you see stowage or bags hanging off the turret of a Sherman. It's like, well, how those bags hanging and they're not just stuck, they're not floating. There would be tie downs. And yeah, on tanks, tie downs, like replacing them with the actual tiny metal ones where you can actually loop thread through and tie things down. It's these little tiny things that when added together completely change the look and feel of something miniature and make it seem like it's real. Like I said, research can be a blessing and a curse. You can absolutely go down a rabbit hole and be like, okay, I thought this project was going to be kind of easy. Zach's just smiling and laughing because he knows exactly what this is like.
Yeah, you're just describing every project I've ever done in this hobby.
It's true. Like, you're like, okay, right. Because we were going to work on those M18 Hellcats 2 years ago, it feels like. And I got sucked into the rabbit hole. It's like, okay, so let's have a look at the wiring and cabling on the inside. I did. And I was like, okay, too much for me to take in right now. So let's put that aside. Research is key. And it's going to tell you everything you need to know to make a very accurate model. But I think this kind of leads on to another point, is how much you're willing to do. And that obviously starts a bit of a different topic of discussion, like willing or passion to do it.
Yeah, 100% agree. You can go most of us can go too far down the rabbit hole. I feel like some people can go down there and live there forever, and it's okay. But I'm a little like TJ. I have a limit. I like accuracy, but I also like finishing projects, right? And not banging my head against walls. And I think one of the other things, when you do this a bit, you will see patterns of details you can add to almost every build, because you've done it a couple times. Like almost every build is missing the wiring of the headlights, which almost all, World War II era vehicles have wiring from their headlights, obviously, to give them power. And that's easy to add with like a little LED wire, or you can do different things, but it's pretty quick to find a walk around, find a photo, find how they were wired, drill a little hole, add a little wire. It looks stellar. It looks much better than just a glued on headlight with nothing attached to it. Or the other one that's really easy, I do all the time, is the hinges. A lot of hinges don't have bolts on the side because of the molding technology. And you just, with a punch set, you punch out some little tiny circles of styrene, you glue them. But that's going to have, now your pin wash or your rust or your dirt has something to attach to. And that contrast will amplify through the whole build and the weathering. And it's simple, right? You're not like carving this from hand. You're punching a couple circles and gluing them up. By the way, my passion is building things simply.
So we'll kind of skip my number 2 and go, because you kind of touched on it. And so my number 3 was aftermarket ? I guess. And because I think all of us here, we love a good naked build, right? That something about a build of anything, especially if it has a crap ton of aftermarket and resin and 3D printed crap and PE, like the naked build, well photographed, sometimes is better than finished builds. They're awesome. I'm a kind of recent convert to that. I used to not really feel that way, but now that I've started to do more of that and take the final photos, I'm like, man, that looks really cool. Like that is really cool. I did with that Sherman 3 that I built, and that was some of my favorite photos were just that before it was painted. That being said, and this is the feedback that I gave this person, that aftermarket is not always worth it, and you have to decide as the modeler what part of that is worth it to you. And even if you get an aftermarket photo etch set, knowing that you don't have to use every piece is really important, because I think like a lot of people, when they start getting into doing this, they get the Voyager aftermarket or the Aber aftermarket or whatever photo etch set, and they're like, oh man, I got to do all this photo etch. But you don't. And like you probably do on your first one and you feel compelled to do it. So like, oh, I spent $30 on this, I got to use it all. But then you kind of move into the sunk cost fallacy. We're like, oh, I spent the money on it, so I need to continue to work on this. No, you don't, because sometimes the plastic is better. It just is. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is. And in figuring that stuff out is like, that's when you kind of can like move up to the next level, where you'll understand what juice is worth the squeeze and what isn't. And I know you guys I know Zach's gonna laugh at me, because one of mine is workable tool clamps. I think are dumb as hell. I don't think they're worth the time. When you can get 3D printed ones that look just as nice, don't care. I printed my own for the Tiger. They look dope. I have no I have no desire to fold a workable tool clamp. They're cool. Don't get me wrong. I have some on the Hummel that I have of yours.
Yeah, it's okay. You can just admit that you can't build them. That's fine.
You know what?
That's fine.
I've never tried, but I probably couldn't, and I'm
Real
okay
men
with
are
that.
vulnerable, and it's beautiful.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like you expressing that.
I don't want to do it because I probably can't, but also I just don't think it's worth it. Because I guarantee you, when I paint that Hummel, no one's gonna be like, "Damn, look at those workable tool clamps."
Well, that's because you're gonna knock them all off.
Yeah. I mean,
No, that's what you would do.
Clamps are like, God, they're painful, right? I've occasionally liked them because you leave them like hanging open with no tool in them and it looks neat, but you need a reason, right? Like that. Otherwise, 3D print one that's closed and glue it on.
That's the
thing.
think that's the biggest thing. Agreed.
If you do a 3D printed, or if you do a workable tool clamp and then you close it and put a tool in it, okay.
Nah.
If it's
the
open,
ones that I've enjoyed, it's like my T29. I have a couple open ones on the side where there's nothing in them anymore, and they're pretty visible. So, okay, maybe worth it. But my Voyager thing is rule of thirds, right? When I get a big Voyager set, a third of it's going to be awesome, and I'll be so happy I had it, and that's why I bought it. And a third's like fine. It's going to be difficult to fold or kind of troublesome or tedious, but it kind of works. And a third I'm not going to use. It's trash. It's worse than the plastic, or it's so impossible to fold and make that I'm going to give up and not frustrate myself. And that's fine. It's totally fine. Like, don't feel obligated to use it all.
Yeah, just because it exists doesn't mean you have to use it.
Yeah. And I think your general point of like aftermarket for aftermarket's sake is stupid is a very valid point, right? Like, choose your things, ask your friends, ask people who built that kit specifically. Some is super valuable. Some is like, oh, we're changing this one little thing from 6 bolts to 5 bolts. You may care, you may not, right? Like, pick your poison. Don't waste your money or your time just adding all the aftermarket.
I'm aftermarket. Like, I like it. I rarely buy photo etch. I don't like using it. If it's a big obvious piece like a fender that's pretty big and bulky and easy to bend, happy days out. But like, I don't like PE grab handles. I don't like tiny things you have to bend, mainly because I know I'm going to lose it, I'm going to break it, or it's going to ping off. So like, especially now that like TJ said, I can 3D print a lot of what PE can do, and it's like, oh, it's printed, I don't have to piss around and bend it. So for me, I'm very minimalist when it comes to aftermarket. I think this is something JB said a long time ago. Basic like essentials for PE aftermarket: replacement tracks, metal barrel. Like, they're my go-to. If I'm getting aftermarket, I'm absolutely going to get those two things. Anything after that, like it's stuff I'll print myself, like on Tigers, or, well, actually a lot of German stuff. I'll 3D print the fire extinguisher, because the plastic ones will always have a big fat mold line on it, and it's just a pain in the ass to get rid of. Same with German lights, the lights that go on the front, mold lines, things like that. So if the aftermarket will make the build quicker and easier, but also look really nice, I'll add it. But like Tita said, a lot of it's not worth the money or effort, I feel. So I've left you all speechless.
I know you got something to say, Zach.
I mean, no, I completely agree. And if you'd asked me that 3 years ago, I'd be like, no, you got to use every single piece of photo etch in the set. But I have learned that's not true, and shouldn't be done. Because, like you're saying, between photo etch sometimes being kind of iffy, both from an accuracy, just buildability point. Sometimes the plastic is just better. Like photo etch grab handles. If I have the choice between a flat photo etch grab handle and just the molded on plastic one, I'll take the molded on plastic one, because at least it's round. At least it has 3 dimensions to it. After my Sturmpanzer 4, which I built 3 years ago, which has about every single piece of photo etch on the planet on it, I have since learned it's okay to not do that. It's okay to use other material. It's okay to just use the plastic, because it's probably fine enough. I am a huge aftermarket person, though, as anyone who's seen my builds or knows me knows. I spend way too much money, way too much time on aftermarket with my builds, and it comes back to bite me many times. There's a reason I finish 3 models a year, but it is definitely one of those things where it takes practice. It takes a couple builds of using it, like you all have said, to understand what is worth my time, what is worth my money, and what do I just need to push to the side, not worry about. And I think that is that's a skill for for more than just aftermarket. I think that's the hobby as a whole. Like what tweezers are good, what aren't good, what kits are good, what aren't good, what should I avoid, what should I know when to not work with. Jensen, you brought up those M18s. Yeah.
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 That's all we need to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. If we're giving advice to someone who wants to level up, right? Like this is level up advice. I'm not going to give. I don't think I've given people advice like you need more aftermarket. Like that's your problem. Like maybe you need wiser aftermarket and rein in your credit card bill. But yeah, I think I'm not one. I find with new kits, I don't need a metal barrel every time like that. I used to. Tracks are like my number one, right? Like I do like the Lincoln Links occasionally in the new kits, but almost always tracks and wheels are my first choice. And then it's little things. It depends on the kit, right? Like on a Sherman, I want 3D printed like light guards, right? Like I don't want to bend those of etch, which are probably aftermarket anyway, and I don't like the overscale plastic ones. But that's niche to that subject. I'm not going to do that for every tank necessarily.
So this can lead into what was my number two and what. So like I guess these last two to me I think are the most important, and I'll start with this one, and then I also want to talk about passion that you brought up, Janders. I thought that was really good, and Zach, this kind of goes into what you were saying too. I said that patience and knowing what you can rush on and what you can't rush on, when you figure that out, and it's different for every kid. So this is not like this can't be universal advice. And it also depends on what you like to build, because my advice to this person was, well, when it comes to like Asuka Shermans, I can slam those together pretty quick. I've built a bunch and they're all more or less the same. And once you've built a couple of them, you know how everything goes together. The bogies are tedious, but they're not overly complicated when you figure out little tricks to make it work. And putting the hull together is super fast. I mean, I could have a hull with a turret on it in an afternoon. It's not going to be detailed, but it'll be all the basic shapes are going to be there. And this is one that I've recently learned too. And this is why I wanted to add it to this list, because I know I used to be known kind of like how JB was for finishing a lot in a year and getting a lot of projects done. And I have severely backed off of that for reasons due to modeling and then also reasons to life. But I also build way slower than I used to, because I like to take my time and get it right for me. It may not be perfect, but it's the way I want it to be. And I don't like half baked things, I guess. Like if I know I can put a little bit of effort and make this really good, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Because to me, that's more valuable than I have another notch in my belt, that I have another completion that is just going to go sit in the cabinet and no one's ever going to look at it again except for me.
Yeah, you said patience and Zach said discipline. I said practice. To me, they're all kind of I'm getting the same vibe, right? It's about taking your time, about dedicating time to what is an art, right? Like we can have that argument, but like it's at least a skill that you have to practice, a muscle you got to, work out to make stronger, right? And you can't just look at a video once and do that. You need to try it a few times. You got to build some models and like try that technique repeatedly with diligence and don't rush it, and you'll get better. Like that's just kind of the truth of so many things, not scale modeling, right? Like if you want to be a better runner, like if you don't run at all, you get off the couch and run a little, you'll get better. But at some point, just doing that's not enough, right? You need nutrition, you need a training plan, you need like different types of running. And same with scale modeling. I think you can just do it a few times and get okay at it. But if you want to jump to the next level, you need to practice that art and be diligent and patient in doing so. And I'm bad about the patience part. I'm trying to be better and like force myself. I will model just for like an hour here and there between things, and I'll try to cram too much in. Like that's my impatience, is I want to get to the next step. And I'm like, I do a couple things beautifully, take my time, and then I have like 5 minutes left and I should just clean my bench up, right, and walk away. But I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this one more effect, and I screw it all up. And you're like, and then you're angry for the rest of the day. And it's just stupid. Be patient, take your time and do your thing.
Yeah. And with practice, I'm also a big believer in practice with everything. It's just like with working out. The first time you try to deadlift is not going to be your best time. It's going to take time to work those muscles and get to the point where you can pick up as much as you want to pick up. And to me, modeling is the same way. And I've had this conversation with numerous people that disagree with me, and that's okay. They're wrong. There is, in my opinion, and I think this is actually not even an opinion, this is just objectively true. No one is automatically amazing at scale modeling. You're just not. I don't care how artistic you are, whatever. The people we all look up to, everyone can do that. I mean, if you don't have hands or eyes, obviously that's different. But if we're all starting from an even playing field, we can all get to the level that we want to get at. It is true. Some people will get there faster than other people, because that's where what people like to call natural talent comes in. Some people have a better eye for things, but you can learn everything. You can learn art. That's why you go to art school. It's just no different than engineering, right? No one is just like, I'm an engineer without any training, right? Like, that's just not how humanity works. It's not how people work. You're like, with my trade, like I wasn't just a good steam fitter the first time I tried it. Like, I'd learn, and then I got good at it. Like, right. And to me, to think that art, or what we do, if you want to call it art, which I do, but not everyone does, but model building, scale modeling, if you think that some people are just automatically better at that because, then why does that transfer to everything else, right? And most people would say, well, yeah, not everyone's just like an amazing mechanical engineer without any practice. Well, obviously, right? And practice is how you get to be better. Like, people love to bring up the sports thing, but like, all the best sports players in the world practice every day, all the time. That's all they do. We don't see it as enjoyers of sports because we're not there. We see them when they play a game, right? We see, like, Alex Ovechkin's the greatest goal scorer ever. He's going to beat Wayne Gretzky's record. He's not the best hockey player ever, but as far as scoring goals go, he's the best. And yeah, he's a naturally talented athlete, but if anyone's watched his career, when he doesn't try, he doesn't do well. When he is out of practice, he doesn't do well. That's the way it works. And scale modeling is the same way. You want to get good at scale modeling, you have to practice, and you have to do the right kind of practice. I've mentioned it before. If you just build Spitfires, you'll get really good at building Spitfires. You're not going to be that good at maybe building something that's not a Spitfire or another genre altogether.
I think it goes to so much in life. Like, people say this almost reflexively of like, oh, they're just so talented, right? They were born fast. They were born with sense of color, which may be true. They were born with a little bit of a step ahead, but saying that kind of thing, denies them, the gratitude we should have for the amount of effort they put in, right? Like, Michael Jordan, like, as an example, right, didn't just walk up to a basketball court and start dunking, right? That guy put in effort. And to say that it's all natural talent is insulting to his effort and all that time he spent. It's also a way of denial of that you could do it too. Okay, you couldn't be Jordan, but you could get in really good shape and play basketball. But it's going to cost you a ton of time. And I feel like some people just shrug their shoulders at different things in life and don't even try because of like that mindset. And I see that sometimes in modeling. They're like, oh, I'm just a kind of mediocre builder. I just like to glue the stuff. I'm not talented like you guys are. I'm like, well, I wasn't born talented to make a tank. Come on. Like, either you don't have to want to do it, but if you want to do it, try and work at it. And that's how you're going to get there.
Yeah, I don't think we should let Doc on anymore because he's literally just said everything I was just about to say. Like,
you gotta be faster on the buzzer. Get faster on the buzzer, baby.
But he also said it better, so maybe we should just have him on all the time.
Yeah. This is not my last episode. Goodbye.
What is TJ on here for, though?
No, but it's true. It's like you say, people who are like, oh, but they're so like, they're just naturally gifted. It's like you said, it dismisses the years of graft. And I hate it. Like, I watch a lot of snooker. A lot of people won't know what that is because it's very British. I watch a lot of snooker and people say about Ronnie O'Sullivan, like, oh, he's like the most naturally gifted player ever. It's like, he's been playing since he was like 7 years old for like 8 hours a day. He's grafted. It's like, yeah, he might be the best in the world and greatest of all time. And he might have been able to like just pick it up a bit easier than other people, but he's put effort in years. He's done nothing else. He's like nearly 50 now. He's done nothing else with his life. He has lived to do that. And I'm not saying that's what we do. We don't live to build models, but like, why are you going to be, you're not going to be really good at something you hate. Like, you have to have a love for it. You have to have a passion for it and want to do it. And it's the same with some of these projects. Like, some projects will put as much effort as we humanly can into it, like everything we have, because we love the subject, we love the model, we love everything about it. And some others were just like, yeah, it's a bit cool. I'll detail like the bare minimum. I'll put a bit of effort in and get it finished because it's a cool subject, but I don't love it. Like I absolutely love the 3-inch gun carrier. I have a kit, but I'm not touching it until I know that I hate. I know this gets shit on a lot, but like I'm not going to build it until I'm good enough. And I know people hate that. I know, but like until I know I can do it to the best of my ability, whenever that is, like fully detailed. Yeah, I'm not doing it, but that's because I absolutely love the project and I love the subject and I want it to be as good as I can make it.
But Jensen, you just did a brilliant transition from where we were about practice to passion, right? And that was on point. And so when I said passion, what I meant was like a lot of Matt McDougall Dukes, right? Like, and he'll use that analogy of I only have so many F's in my tank to give. And he is unabashed about just throwing projects away midstream if he's tired of them. And I've gotten the same way and learned that I need to pick projects, subjects, topics that I'm passionate about to have enough energy to get through the tough parts, right? Because not every build is an out of the box Tamiya, like I'm going to smile and love it. And I think we have to admit, just like sport or something, you don't like every day of training. You don't wake up in the mood every morning to do it. This hobby we do it for fun, right? But there are parts of it you don't like. I'm sure we can all think of like sanding certain road wheels that you're just kind of like, And so I think a big part of getting to the next level is to find subjects and models you're passionate about so that you have that energy to get through all the rough spots and push yourself to the next level and try things that are harder and still love it. So I've learned, like the group build thing, don't join group builds just because a couple of your buddies are doing it when it's not a group build subject or kit that you really love, because you're going to get tired of it and put it on the shelf and whatever. I've learned that I don't like full interior kits unless you can really see them. And I'll get bogged down in them for months and not really enjoy it. And then I won't do a good job and I'll rush it and I'll be unhappy with myself. And I've, at least after a few years, learned that about myself. So I try not to do that. And I suspect a lot of people have learned the same way, right? To pick subjects that inspire them and then they can reach higher.
Zach, what were you going to say?
Excellent question. But I have something new to say, so that works out fine. I think going back to what you just said about the group builds, that is a lesson I have had to teach myself. And I think that sort of plays to my idea of discipline. Sometimes that discipline is to not do something. And that even goes back to aftermarket and even into research. Sometimes there are things you will research. I will find this detail and I have to come up with is this worth my time or is this not? And I think that requires a level of discipline to know yes or no. Like, do I really need to change out this one tiny bolt that is invisible except for this one angle where you hold the model at a 45-degree upside down in the dark? Or can I just leave that alone and work on something bigger? Do I need to join another group build of something that I know the only reason I'm interested in this subject is because Jensen and TJ are. That's the only reason I know I am. But I get sucked into that, and I'm very bad about that. I lack that self-control to be like, you don't actually care about this subject. You just care that your friends care. This great example. And if Jackson was here, he would back me up on this, but he's stupid and not here. So who cares? When he starts talking about some of the projects that he does, because he has a knack of finding incredibly interesting things to build, it inevitably makes me want to build one, like his gun truck. Every time he starts talking about his gun truck, he's like, well, I got to build a gun truck now. I have to. That must be what I do. I have no other choice in my life except now to build a 135th Vietnam gun truck. And then 5 minutes later, I go, I mean, they're cool, but I don't care that much. I really don't care that much. Like, yeah, sure, I might build one day, but I don't need to go out and spend $120,000 on every piece of aftermarket, all these nice kits for something I'm going to build for 2 weeks, realize I don't even like trucks and quit. So I think that is a very good point.
Yeah,
that's definitely something.
You link the passion and keeping things disciplined. Because I was thinking the same thing about like group builds or little buddy builds, like not to just crap on them. They can increase, right, your desire. At least for me, like I found that the little like small buddy builds of like 2 to 4 or 5 people that are doing the same kit, I really like those, especially when it's like buddies of mine and you can share like some research and are each doing it a little different and kind of talk aftermarket. Like that gives me more energy. But the really big group builds, with the one exception being that the Plastic Posse T3485 group build, I love that. but I kind of already liked that tank and that kit was fun, and everyone being in the group together doing it did give me some energy. But I think, yeah, you have to know yourself and don't get your passion sucked out of you, or don't let your tank get dry.
Or let your passion run too far. I think that can be another thing. Don't let it get out of hand with something that maybe is a false hope there.
It's easy to do what I nearly did this week. It's something TJ said to me, stay on target. It's very easy to see what other people are doing and be like, ooh, I want to do that. Like me, you, Jackson used to do it all the time. Like, oh, FT17s, let's all build a 1/16th one. No, and it's a good job none of us started them 2 years ago. It's just one of those. It's like if you've got something on the bench or a project you want to do your best to not be sidelined or see the next shiny thing. Because I'm terrible for it. Like I said, nearly 600 days to finish a jumbo. I've probably bought 600 kits between starting that and now because I just like the next shiny thing. Just try and tunnel vision a bit, because I'm at one extreme or the other. I'm at tunnel vision, or I look at everything, and now everything's interesting.
So now I'm going to talk about, I think, point number 4. And I think we all kind of agreed before, because we had, kind of kicked us around before we recorded, before you guys came on. This to me is like the number one. This is the number one thing. This above all else. If you want to get better in really anything, but scale modeling, you have to seek honest feedback. And to me, the best feedback is from people that you trust and who are willing to listen to. When I sent this to them, I said, you don't have to listen to everything they say. You don't have to do everything they say, but you need to listen to everything they say. And I know we've all done it here. I've posted a photo or sent a photo and someone's like, oh, you should do this. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to actually do that, but thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I just don't want to. To me, it's just not worth it. But hearing that is still valuable. And then, I admit, for myself, and I'm sure you guys would agree too, sometimes it is hard to check your ego when you think you nailed something and then, one of you is like, yeah, that's not right. Or you sure you want to leave it like that? Like, I know you can do better than that. And you're like, man, that kind of, damn, maybe I could do better. And then you have to like actually stop and look at yourself and be like, oh, okay. And judge yourself. And I know I mentioned it before, but our circle, I think we've all made each other better modelers because of the circle of friends that we have. Right. And I feel sorry for people that don't have something like what we have and aren't a part of that. And that's the case for a lot of people. A lot of people are truly solitary modelers outside of, internet relationships or Facebook, that kind of stuff. We're not. And to me, I think that it's definitely made me a better modeler. If you look at what I was producing before, we all became really good friends, and what I can do now, like I've definitely gotten better. Obviously, it's just from time, growth curve and all that stuff. But having you guys tell me straight up with, no malice, like, hey man, you fix this, do better than this. That's awesome. And if you just get, I hate to, if you just get showered with attaboys, can you really get better? Right? If all anyone ever tells you, if anyone watches The Boys, that's like in season 4, that's like Homelander's new thing. It kind of always, he's an asshole. Like he's the bad guy of the series. And if anyone is not aware of that, I hate to break it to you. He's the bad guy, but he doesn't like the fact that people just tell him yes all the time. He's kind of over it now. And it's, or the episode of The Simpsons when Homer joins the Stonecutters and he becomes number 1, right? And he wins all the time. He wins cards. They just do what he says all the time. It's cool at first, but then then at the end of the day, you're like, but that's all anyone ever tells me is like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, good job. But I love hearing good job, but I also want to hear if I didn't do something right, or if I missed something, or if I could do something better. And I want to hear that from people that I trust. Not necessarily some random Joe Blow on the internet telling me that what I did is stupid. Like that's not helpful. But from people that and that you trust, yeah, that's awesome. I don't mind hearing it from someone I don't know. People I don't know have caught something I've missed. In the Sherman 5 that I just finished really building, someone was like, "Hey man, don't forget to add the cable reel on the back." I'm like, "Oh crap, I did forget about the cable reel." I showed it to Jackson, who knows more about Shermans than I do. And he didn't mention it because he didn't think about it, because it's super precise to this particular model or this particular what it was an OP tank. So normal M4A4s don't have cable reels on the back, but this one did. I just totally forgot about it. And a random stranger who was nice enough to correct me pointed that out, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Let me go get one.
I'm going to beat you to it this time, Doc. It's a real good point, and there's a few things I want to say about feedback. Like on a personal level, sometimes feedback will sting, and you kind of have to be, and it stings because it's true. Like one specific instance, I remember last year I finished that Jagdpanzer, the Tamiya one, which I think you now have, TJ. Once it was finished, I posted it online and blah blah blah. Lester messaged me with a bit of feedback about the build. He was like, really good build, but here's some things. And I'm not going to lie, that feedback stung because everything he said was true. I was just like, that's a really good point. And it was just like kind of little stuff like, oh, like it's weathered this way, but like, why is it weathered this way? Why would that have happened? And I was just like, that like afterwards, and I thought about it, I was like, that is all really good points. Like it's weathered specifically, but there's no reason for it to be that way. Like I've not justified why it is what it is. So yeah, that stung. Well, like I said, because I know it was true. And it's just like, I thought I did a really good job ignoring the fact that I'd glossed over something I shouldn't have glossed over. Another thing, like this might sound a bit full of myself. I'm a great advocate of that. Don't take critique from someone you wouldn't go to advice for. Sorry, and it sounds a bit like, oh well, that's a bit like blah 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 blah, blah. But it's a little true for me. Like I'll be honest, this will make me sound like a bit of an ass, but it tracks. Just this one instance. I've received, and it's a bad attitude, and I acknowledge this. I've received critique from some people, and I'm just like, dead ass. I've been like, well, show me your models then. It's like, they're not very good. That sounds awful, I know, but it's like, you've critiqued me for like a mold line on my light mount on the top roof of my Sherman, and you've left a seam line on the barrel of your gun. Like, don't even. But it's just like, well, actually, even though he's done that, it's still a good point. I still, like, regardless of what his mistakes are, I've still left that mold line. So, talk about a contradiction. Like, I know all that sounds really bad.
That needs to stay.
It's right, yeah. So, regardless,
you're not wrong.
I know, but sometimes being right makes you an asshole.
No, I don't care what anyone says. No one would ever deny that. I'm as altruistic as they come too. I don't think you have to be a master to be a judge. You really don't, right? Like, and I've mentioned before, movie critics, they're not as good as Steven Spielberg or whatever, but they don't have to be. They're doing a different thing. Yeah, it's the same thing with with giving feedback on a model. You don't have to know how to do everything to know that it's not right. But at the same time, I've also gotten the same. Someone's told me something. I'm like, MFer, please, like, who are you? But damn, they're right. So
yeah,
it's like,
and that's what I mean. I'm not going after them, and I'm not trying to say like, well, I'm better than you, so I can't take critique from you. Because it's like, it's not that. It's the opposite. It's like, it doesn't matter how good I am. Anyone can like pick out my errors. That's what I'm saying. Like, and that sounded bad. No matter how good I am, I mean, like, no matter what level anyone is at,
just keep digging that hole.
I'm gonna stop now.
Despite being the best modeler in the world, the peasantry still can critique me if they choose to do so.
Jensen leaves one error on every build just so the masses have something to try to find.
It's true. Yeah,
it's like a scavenger hunt.
No, dude, trust me, I do appreciate it. That's real, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
There's a huge art to giving critique, but there's also a huge, I don't know, there's an art, there's an ability to accept critique that's tough, right, man? Like, like again, if the rabble like says stupid stuff about your build, that never bothered me. I just think it's kind of funny. Like sometimes they'll critique you when you're clearly right, or you have a reference photo right in front of their face and they can't see it, right? But yeah, it stings, especially someone you respect that calls you out, not like a missed seam line. Who cares? Like, that's just, you missed it. I'll go fix that. But like, if someone you really respect is like, I really don't think your technique here was good and your color choices are all, that kind of thing where you're like, oh, I tried hard and I chose this on purpose. And a couple people I respect think it's bad. Like, that can sting, but you have to learn how to deal with that if you want to be better. Or you just, drink some bourbon and run away, come back in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Like when these people go on MasterChef and they present food to Gordon Ramsay and he's like, darling, it stinks. That's going to hurt. They're going to hate that. Because it's like, this is Gordon Ramsay saying your stuff is terrible. And you've tried really hard. but sometimes you need to hear it.
I need to hear the Gordon Ramsay again is what I need to hear.
No,
Can you hold the 2 pieces of bread to like Zach's head and, you know.
What are you?
Yeah, my point was competition, but I like critique better maybe as a point, because I was going to like put a big asterisk next to competition and say, I don't mean that old soundbite of, you know, if you don't go compete in an IPS competition, you're not going to get better. Because I actually don't think those competitions themselves, like that day of show, necessarily makes you better. Like, it can be nice to see things on the table. I think judging can make you better because you get a look at a bunch of vehicles with your buddies. My point was a little more towards the passion of like, if competing in a competition or against yourself or with your buddies makes you push yourself, it's valuable. And critique is like the other side of that. Like, you can't have a competition without some kind of critique or judging. And, you know, when I was picking that word, I was thinking of one of my kind of, to use the Plastic Posse term, the level up build, right? Was when TJ and I built Crusaders, and it turned into a buddy build, but we didn't start it like that. It's just we both like that tank, and Border Model dropped that kit, and we ended up building them in parallel and sending each other, you know, like in progress shots. And like, TJ knew more about the vehicle than me, so we're talking little details to add and fixes. And I felt like every time I'd see what he's doing, I'm like, oh man, I got to keep up with that, right? Like, he added this effect or this little detail, I'm going to do it too. And it's really cool because you find yourself in a zone where you're not competing against someone, you're competing with them, which sounds really pedantic, but like it's a difference. It's key is that you're pushing each other forward, right? You're not just trying to defeat that guy and leave him in your dust. You're like, oh no, I'd like to be 99 out of 100 and he'd be a 98, but we are going to get there together. And like building that kind of friendship group or camaraderie group or finding those people in line where you can critique each other and pull each other forward is super valuable.
Zach, you got anything?
But no, I mean, I don't really have much different perspective to add, really. No. But yeah,
I mean, I don't mean to be presumptuous, so correct me if I'm wrong, but have you not gone through that when you became friends with us, right?
Oh yeah.
You were a young guy. You were talented. You had a good base. And you started sharing your work with us, and I feel like all of us, and I know I specifically did, and I remember it. It was when you were doing your sandbag Sherman.
I mean, I didn't pay attention to that anyway, though. So I mean, you were saying it even
right
back then. I knew better.
But when you were like asked for what we thought, and you know, we were honest with you, it was good. Here are some things you could do better, and you didn't get pissed off and be like, "Well, man, F you guys." You listened, and then you got really freaking good. So I'm not saying we did that. I mean,
I would say so. I would 100% say so.
Okay, I'll take the credit then. But you know,
I just regret helping you at all in that case.
you and I think Jackson's the same way. That's why I really wanted him here too, because you and him were kind of like we're on the same journey together. Not that like we were all the way up here and you guys were down here. You're both were very talented and obviously still are. But I think it's also safe to say that when we all became friends and the type of friends that we are, where we can be honest with each other with our modeling, we've all kind of gotten better. Not just you guys, obviously, me too, because you guys, like I've maintained, Jackson's a better builder than me. Zach, you're a better builder than me. I may be able to do some things better than what you guys can do, but as far as I'm concerned, building, you guys are way better builders than me. Just it's cleaner, it's tighter, and I can't do some of these things. Maybe, I don't know. I've never tried, but I feel like I probably couldn't, workable photo etch clamps. But you know what I mean? Like we can, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And that's kind
exactly.
of, if you get a good circle, that's what happens. And kind of in that same thing, seek out to people better than you. Like I've asked Fabio Sacchi about how to recontour the hoods on my A1. I don't know Fabio, but he's really good. And the worst anyone's going to do is ignore you. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, do you mind? I have a couple questions if you could help me. And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I need to know how you did XYZ. And he laid it all out for me. And saying like, I've asked Spud a question about, hey, how did you do this one particular thing? You kind of touched on it in your Facebook post, but I need to know more. And he's been more than happy to help me. And you'll find most people will help you, and not everyone will. So there's some douchebags out there, but on a whole, if someone asks you for help, or if you ask someone for help, they'll help you. Unless an airplane modeler, because airplane modelers aren't nice.
As an airplane modeler, I can concur. Yeah. We are
No,
like
it's-
that.
It's your heel turn.
Exactly.
It's true. Contrary to what I recently have said, I do love it when people just DM me out of the blue and be like, "Hey, about your most recent build, yada yada yada." Spud did it with the M10 I finished. I thought my earth effects on that were actually some of the best I've done. But then he just messaged me. He's like, "Oh, you see on the top of the turret where it's dark meets the lighter earth, just blend it a little bit more because the contrast between them is a little bit sharp." Stuff like that. It's like, you know what? Bang on. That's absolutely right. Like, I love it. And when someone reaches out to you to give you advice on your build without you reaching out to them, I really appreciate that because it shows that they do actually care about you as a modeler, your progression, and the work you do. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Having someone, even if it's like, yeah, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but just the fact that they have the respect for you, I think is part of it, and the desire to see someone do better. Yeah, especially when they take it to like a DM or something where it's not just a comment, where it truly is a personal interaction. I think that is a really helpful thing, and it definitely does show a good character in a person, I think, to do something like that, where, yeah, sure, they might be saying this is really terrible, but I think in that context, you can, more than a comment, which could be saying the exact same thing. They could say even the same way, but if it's done in that way, I'm going to respect that and take that to mind much better than somebody saying this is trash in my comments. You know what I mean? It's a very different interaction there.
Yeah, I mean, if we're giving advice to people, I think there's something about how do you ask for this, right? Like, I mean, you can go in like the Plastic Posse Facebook group and ask, right? But also there are all these niche Facebook groups for almost every subject, right? So like if you're into that and you're building that, if you go in there, you're going to find like 100 dorks that love whatever. Oh, I like short-barreled Stoogs on the Eastern Front only. Okay, well, there's a group for that. And you can go in there, and I guarantee you there are people that are passionate about that topic that'll give you advice. And that's why these things exist, is so people can interact, right? I would tell people, don't go hide. Introduce yourself. Say, hey, look, I'm halfway done building this. What do you guys think? Like, give me some tips. And specific asks are always awesome. Like, I've had people I get a lot on Instagram, right? Especially like almost like kids kind of send me models and they're like, what do you think of it? How can I improve? And it's just like a model. And it's hard actually to give advice when it's like obviously like a 15-year-old's first model tank, right? Or like there's like 100 things to improve. So sometimes people come with like specifically like, hey, I really want to do like a dust effect on this like side like I saw on your tank. I'm like, oh, now that I can walk you through for 15 minutes, right? Like let's go through it. So I would give people that advice is go to your heroes, go to people that you appreciate or that you don't even know, but you like what they did, and just ask them specifically, how did you do that? I want to learn. And 98% of the time they will help you. And 2% of the time you will have a new mortal enemy. And that's great because it will fuel your passion to defeat them eventually.
You always need an antagonist.
Absolutely. It's key.
It's
arch nemesis is my fifth. My fifth one is arch nemesis. You need one to defeat.
Well, you raise a good point about, going to a group to find a nerd that is into what you're into. And I think that's I did mention that before, like when we were talking about this or in the chat before, but like go to a subject matter expert, because more often than not, they're going to be super excited that you're into that. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a subject matter expert with Shermans. I know a lot. I know more than probably most people. I don't know everything, but when someone and it's happened, someone reaches out to me like, "Hey, I want to build a Sherman." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, I'm here for that. What are you going to build?" And they're like, "This picture. Can you help me?" I'm like, "Hell yes. Let me tell you everything I know about how to get exactly what you want." I remember Bruce Worrell did it maybe 6 months ago, a little bit ago. He's like, "I want to build bomb to M4A2." In the Canadian service. It was a Fisher-built tank, and it's famous for having landed on Normandy and completed the war in Germany, survived the whole war. And then I think it's a monument tank, I think near where he lives. And he's like, what do I need? I'm like, I can help you with that. This is awesome. Write all of this down, please. Like most subject matter experts get super into people asking them for help because that's what they're into. And most people that are into things like it when other people are into them, right? Like that's a normal human reaction. Not always. There's definitely some grouchy people out there that whatever. But as a general rule, people are super into it. And yeah, seek those people out. Ask them questions. and listen to what they have to say. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But, if you ask them and they give you an answer, at least acknowledge it. You can be like, I'm not going to do that, but thanks for the answer. Don't ask the question and they give you an answer and then just do the opposite, because then that's when you piss them off. Because like, well, dude, why'd you even ask me if you weren't going to do what you wanted the answer? I gave you the answer and now you don't care. Like, just say that. That's fine.
Thanks to you, Dave. That was a really good discussion. And I think there's a lot to unpack there with trying to improve and the different aspects that people can try and take on board. And in all fairness, I'd like to really hear what other people's points of improvement are. Because I imagine everyone has their own versions and different of opinions. Because we honestly, we do love a difference of opinion. So yeah, if you have any, please do contact us and put them on the page. And yeah, we'd love to know what your points of improvement are. Now, let's go over to some cross-promotion.
The Plastic Posse is just one of several great scale modeling podcasts. If you are interested in more scale modeling content, you can head over to modelpodcast.com, where you will find links to many other great podcasts about our hobby. The Posse also recommends several excellent modeling blogs and vlogs, such as Stephen Lee's Sprue Pie with Frets, Chris Wallace's Model Airplane Maker, A Scale Canadian TV with the Mr. Jim Bates, and David Brian Bridges' DB Scale Model Studio blog.
Jensen, what time is it?
Let me quickly look at my watch. It's time for merch. If you would like to rep the Posse, check out our awesome merch on the Triple P Spring page. You could find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, or even some of our world-famous Triple P lounge trousers. You can order all of your stylish plastic Posse merch off the web at loungetrousers.com.
Well, thanks for riding along with us for episode 96 of the Plastic Posse. We appreciate your support, as well as support for our awesome patrons. I also want to thank Tankcraft, TMA USA, and AK Interactive for supporting what we do. And remember, the Plastic Posse is available on YouTube. We will return in 2 weeks with more discussions about scale modeling. Do you have feedback, suggestions, ideas, or just want to drop us a line? Send us your feedback via email at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com.
Sorry, I got to prep for this one. Yeah!
Give that a solid 7 out of 10.
One of the ways you can help support the Plastic Posse is to become a Plastic Posse Outrider. If you want to become a Plastic Posse Outrider, it's super easy. Go over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Plastic Posse and set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help offset the cost of bringing you the Triple B. There are 3 different tiers of support starting at just $1 a month. There are 3 different tiers of support starting at just $1 a month.
Let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These guys step up and help the Posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for their support. If I mispronounce your name, Scott is going to send you some free merch, so just contact him. Brett Marquard, Greg Williams, Nick Wolf, Brian Clark, Sean Earl, Black Hat Scale Models, Ben Hardaway, Craig Jarbo, Adam Jackson, Red Beach One Studios, James Morando, Casey Gray, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Eric Curvina, John Hale, Eric Kane, Logan Hansen, Paul Burdett, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Peroni, the voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Idenwill, Steve Baker, Joe Porsche, we're going to pronounce that one right, Patrick Brown, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Lee Fogel, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Toadman, ModelDoc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Workala, John Everett, Uncle Buck, Mark Bradley, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnson, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seed, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
So how about those Posse foremen? These are Posse Outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand, and we also thank them for their support. Therese, Raphael, Warhammer Adjacent, Russ, Stefan, Mikkel, Lavar, Gil, Mike, Michael, Steve, Winston, Scott, Emery, The Krieger, Aussie Modeler, William, Keith, Sunkissed, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, Warhoff Models, G. Baker, Tom Stuff, Crazy Lota, Lynn, Cliff, Damien, Kieran, Cody, Tim, Nuke Man Mike, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul, iBones Models, Mr. Grizz, Jackson, Joel, Chris, Robert, Jamie, Steve, MD Models, Hoppa Steve Munsell, JV, Eric, Matthew, and David.
And of course, our $1 and free Posse Outriders. We appreciate all of you, like Mark Sanderson. Thank you. Lastly, a request for all our listeners. Would you please consider posting a review of the Triple P on your favorite podcast platform? Each 5-star review will help modelers find the Plastic Posse.